Part 1, the FBI, right think, wrong think, or just plain groupthink. Hello, this is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network, or ONN. Welcome to Part 2 of the FBI, right think, wrong think, or just plain groupthink. In Part 1, we briefly talked about the early history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the growing power and reach of the FBI since 9/11, the virtuosity of senior FBI leadership, and the growing reports of misconduct by rank-and-file special agents of the FBI. Today, we will explore the public's trust in the FBI, the neutrality of the agency in applying the law fairly and in the absence of political influence, worrisome changes in the way the FBI has started to do business, and the new powers that are being granted to the FBI, making it easier for the agency to conduct suspicionless investigations of Americans. So let's go back to authentication and ask the question, should the American people trust the FBI? Here we are immediately taken to a data set at statista.com entitled Public Trust in the FBI, and I quote, "So what do Americans actually think of the FBI? According to the most recent survey by Gallup on the topic, public trust in the FBI has fallen in recent years. Where 57% of U.S. adults said that the FBI was doing either an excellent or a good job in 2019, this fell to 44% in 2021. This change mostly comes down to a drop in trust from the Republican side, which saw a fall from 46% to 26% over 2 years. Democrats, on the other hand, have maintained higher levels of confidence at a level of 66%. But what is so interesting here is that the FBI is supposed to be a quasi-independent agency free from political influence in how it interprets and acts on violations of the law. The separation of powers doctrine and the checks and balances were designed to buffer the FBI from outside political influence. The Attorney General of the United States serves at the pleasure of the President, not the people. The fact that the Director of the FBI serves a term of 7 years and is congressionally appointed independent of the 4-year presidential election cycle is an example of just one check in the system that was originally conceived to protect the neutrality of the FBI and to ensure the fair and objective application of the law, independent of political influence. And yet the Gallup poll referred to in this Statista dataset reports public trust in the FBI through the lens of partisan politics, reporting results in terms of major political persuasion. This may be a significant harbinger of the danger that we may have lost sight of the need for an FBI that operates free of political influence with the highest possible moral standards. Next, we find a data set at The Hill entitled "Nearly Half the Country Now Has Serious Doubts About the FBI. Here's Why," by Kevin Brock, telling us, and I quote again, "Like it or not, the FBI finds itself standing on a thin precipice that seems to add a new crack each week. If polls are to believe, almost half of the country now lacks trust in the FBI over concerns it is doing the bidding of one political party over another. That is a disaster for the Bureau, unprecedented in magnitude, and could translate into an existential threat to one of the nation's most important agencies as political fault lines shift," close quote. Brock goes on to say, The FBI has been regularly adding to a growing list of forceful arrests and searches of targets on the right that seem dramatically out of proportion to the alleged crimes being investigated. Early morning residential door banging by a phalanx of heavily armed FBI agents traditionally was reserved, and used sparingly, for subjects of serious violent crime known to be armed and dangerous. Normally, cases involving individuals who are clearly not violent career criminals or flight risks would be handled with a summons to appear or, if necessary, a safe, low-key arrest in a controlled setting. Invasive searches were rarely a first option when a subpoena would more than suffice. Handcuffs were deemed to be ample restraint, close quote. Again, I quote, it's important to remember that 99% of agents daily investigate what every law-abiding citizen wants them to do. This summer saw 6,000 violent criminals arrested, thousands of illegal guns seized, and massive amounts of killer fentanyl taken off the street in a cooperative initiative with local police departments. Gangs have been dismantled. Young children sexually trafficked by cartels have been rescued. Espionage arrests have been made, and cryptocurrency extortions have been recovered. FBI agents working on these matters understand that when a small slice of the FBI fosters a perception of one-sided, politically driven enforcement actions, it erodes the trust that Americans have traditionally placed in the FBI. When trust diminishes, the FBI loses access to cooperation it used to have. When cooperation is lost, fewer crimes are solved. Many agents are understandably upset with current trends. To be clear, the FBI does not have to cooperate with politically fraught DOJ agendas, no matter which party is in power, and it shouldn't, close quote. Finally, there's this data set at the American Civil Liberties Union telling us, and again I quote, in the decade since 9/11, the FBI has broadly used expanded authorities to peer into the lives of American communities on the basis of constitutionally protected beliefs and activities, sweeping away protections that have been in place since the 1970s. New permissive regulations also allow the FBI to spy on innocent Americans and peaceful groups with little or no suspicion of wrongdoing, using intrusive techniques such as physical surveillance, commercial and law enforcement database searches, FBI interviews, and informants. And even when these investigations produce no evidence of wrongdoing, the FBI retains the information collected indefinitely, close quote. The ACLU reports to a number of new unconstitutional activities being pursued by the FBI, among which include suspicionless investigations. These are so-called assessment investigations, can be conducted without any suspicion whatsoever. During these suspicionless assessments, the FBI can use intrusive investigative techniques, including physical surveillance, interviews conducted without any suspicion of wrongdoing, and the use of informants. The misuse of informants. When conducting suspicionless assessment investigations, the FBI has the authority to use informants to spy on innocent Americans. Inappropriate FBI interviews. The FBI is using its assessment authority to conduct interviews based on race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, and political advocacy. But the important thing here is what you think. Is the FBI corrupted? Is it getting too powerful? Can it still be trusted to apply the law fairly and objectively given its current state of political weaponization? Does the FBI deserve the continuing trust of the American people? Or are the vast majority of those serving in the FBI doing their jobs well, only to become the pawns of political influence by a few corrupt leaders at the very top? Or perhaps it is some of both. That brings us to the conclusion of the FBI: right think, wrong think, or group think. We look forward to seeing your feedback at our blog. It is what it is for October 21st, 2021. We look forward to seeing you the next time. This is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network.